This week on BuzzFeed Unsolved, we examine a candy-centric crime wave that struck Japan in the 80s. The multifaceted story of the monster with 21 faces.
Intrigue never seemed so sweet.
That's some of your best work.
The most professional intro I've ever done.
Put that on a highlight reel for the big guy.
Is this a good story?
It's a fantastic story. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Lots of twists and turns.
Some tasty twists.
Yeah, I think you might have peaked a little early in that intro, and then from there it was kind of a precipitous drop.
That's fine.
With that being said, let's get into it.
On March 18th, 1984, Kahatsuisa Ezaki, the head of Japanese candy manufacturer Ezaki Glico, was enjoying an evening bath in his home in Osaka. Suddenly, two hooded, armed assailants broke into his home and kidnapped the naked Ezaki. The next day, a ransom note demanded Ezaki's company Glico turn over 1 billion yen and 100 kilograms of gold in a specified phone booth, the equivalent of $10 million today.
This guy gets kidnapped while taking a bath. He's naked. What's your move? You're pretty vulnerable. I have a couple things that jump to mind.
Okay, I don't mean to bring this to this place so quickly,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna shit the bath.
What I would do, and this is what I always do when I take a bath, always, I make sure that I have to pee. That way, if an assailant jumps into the bathroom, I could jump out of the tub and just start spraying him with my piss.
So you're like Scarface, basically.
Hey! You want to mess with me, you cockroaches?
And then you just casually stride out of it.
There's usually a Ryan-sized window, and then I just jump out of it.
And you're naked and also probably covered in a bit of piss, but you get
I
away.
mean, that's not abnormal.
Well, there you have it, folks.
That's the Ryan Bergara Guide to Survival, which will be available for pre-order. Following this episode, follow the link in description.
2 days later, before any ransom was paid, Ezaki escaped. At least one account related his break for freedom in dramatic detail, describing how before dawn, the bound Ezaki managed to work his ropes loose, break down a door of the isolated warehouse he was kept in, and find 2 railroad employees to help him contact police, while still wearing clothes his assailants had given him. Unfortunately, Ezaki had no idea who his captors were. Though their plan to ransom Ezaki had collapsed, the people behind the kidnapping didn't let that keep them down for long. The perpetrators next demanded $480,000, threatening to poison Glico candies with cyanide if they didn't receive the money. Adding credibility to their threats, the group then reportedly snuck into Glico headquarters to set some of their property on fire.
I love the backup plan here.
Yeah.
I really respect that. I'm wondering if I should be rooting for these people. I think I am. Not because I think it's good to poison the public, but
Okay, glad you cleared that up.
I don't agree with that. Do not poison the public. I do think it's very funny. Stay with me here.
I'm staying here. I have no choice.
Sort of have a little laugh at a big corporate entity like this.
I knew you have.
You think you're impenetrable, huh?
You
Look
have,
what I can do.
You do have this Robin Hood complex of taking down corporations. I'm not gonna lie, I do love seeing a corporation get its lunch pail thrown in the mud sometimes.
Despite a growing list of crimes, authorities were at a loss to pin responsibility on whoever was targeting Glico. In the 1980s, a case stymieing Japanese police like this was a relative rarity. To get an idea of how effective the police in Japan were, in 1983, they solved 97.1% of the murder cases and 55.3% of thefts, compared to the US's 73.5% of murders and 17.3% of thefts. Failing to get to the bottom of the Glico case was a black eye on the police's reputation. One newspaper, Yomiuri, ran an editorial saying, quote, "We do not recall a case in which criminals have made such fools of the police." End quote.
17.3% of thefts solved in the US. That means 83% then unsolved.
Thefts, though?
To me, that just means go steal some shit.
Go steal. It's okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be fine.
It's not the end of the world.
They're not gonna catch you,
Yeah.
I guess. Like if I told you you had an 83% chance of winning $1 million if you bought this lotto ticket, you're gonna buy that ticket.
I'm buying it. I'm buying
100%
yeah.
of the time, yeah. So that's, I don't know, I like your chances there.
Unfortunately for the cops, their situation only became more embarrassing. Perhaps no one was more upset at the police's lack of progress on the case than the criminals themselves. On April 8th, the press received one of the first of what would be over 100 letters sent by the perpetrators over the next year and a half. The letter taunted the police and even tried to help them do their job. It began, quote, "To the stupid police, are you idiots? What are you doing with so many people? If you were pros, you would catch us. Because you guys have such a high handicap, we're gonna give you some hints," end quote. The letter proceeded to debunk a few theories, such as the kidnapping being an inside job, or the owners of the warehouse Miyazaki escaped from being involved. The letter writer also gave police more clues, informing them that the car they used was gray and naming the grocery store where they bought their food. The letter continued, quote, "If you can't catch us after this much info, you guys are just thieves of the taxpayers' money. Should we also kidnap the head of the prefectural police?" End quote.
I recognize there may be victims in this story, collateral victims, but the more I hear from this crowd of funny folks, the more I think corporate terrorism is very, very funny.
Monster with 21 Faces, biggest fan here. I'll get you one of those foam fingers.
Number 22, you recruiting?
Letters from the group continued to pour in. The group showed a knack for getting the public's attention and leveraged the media to ensure their threats and crimes were widely reported. Critics at the time categorized their actions as Gekijo Hansai, or crime as theater. The letters often provided authorities with seemingly random details, such as the gate used to enter a factory or the model of typewriter they were writing on. None of the clues provided in the notes, however, went anywhere, causing the police to look more and more incompetent. Almost all the evidence actually left behind at the crime scenes was either stolen or mass-produced, meaning tracking the group down remained impossible. One clue about the letters themselves, however, stood out. The dialect in which they were written pointed to someone from Osaka. Though this linguistic theory was interesting, it did not help authorities get any closer to apprehending the people responsible. By June, the criminals had begun referring to themselves in letters as the Monster with the 21 Faces, a nod to a 1936 children's story by Japanese writer Edogawa Rampo entitled The Mystery Man with the 20 Faces.
This is a good time to point out that the Monster with 21 Faces can also be translated to the Mystery Man with 21 Faces, but come on.
I like to imagine that at any scene they're at, they're like, let's check tapes from the scene of the crime, and there's just like some random bystanders, but then there's always just a group of 21 people standing together in a tight group.
Yeah,
like maybe it's them.
Like you don't know if they're about to commit a crime or bust out some sweet dance moves
Maybe
like the
it's those 21
Jabberwockies.
Either it's a flash mob or a corporate terrorist.
Frankly, I'm down for either. I love flash mobs still.
He's the only one out there at the Target in Glendale.
Every time I see one, I start clapping.
Yeah.
The Mystery Man with the 20 Faces is about a thief, quote, stirring up the newspapers every day, end quote, and is so adept at disguises that they could be anyone. One excerpt from the story seemed particularly descriptive of the group targeting Glico. Quote, "Up until now, no matter how many police have been called up, they haven't been able to stop this dreadful gang. There is one particularly strange feature of this gang. When they have set their sights on one particular object or artifact, without fail, they will send a letter of warning announcing their intentions, the date, place, and object of the planned crime. Even though they're criminals, perhaps they don't want to engage in an unfair battle. Or perhaps they want to show that no matter how many precautions are taken, they can still commit the crime with their great skill."
I'm beginning to wrap my head around why the police are so effective at their job. If I'm a child hearing this story, I'm thinking if I want to be a policeman, I gotta get my shit together and start training now.
Conversely, if I were a child reading that story, I'd be like, I want to do crimes.
And that's the tale of two cities right there. And that's why we're meant to do battle.
That's right.
Until the end of time. Mouse versus horse. And as we all know, mouse always wins.
I think mouse actually does spook horse, unfortunately. Mouse in scaring horse could sort of be collateral damage
It's
to,
true.
to hoof clopping.
We could just fucking put the gloves on right now.
We'll save that for the season finale.
Season finale, you're gonna see Shane and I just beat the shit out of each other.
This whole set is coming down.
And all of a sudden, crashing through the window will fly me, and Shane's gonna look through it like this. You had enough? And I'm gonna go up and go, I'm just getting started.
I can't wait. Tune in. It's gonna be exciting.
By September 1984, another Japanese confectioner, Morinaga and Company, began to receive extortion letters threatening unspecified action if the sender did not receive $410,000. According to police, Morinaga never sent the payment. On October 8th, Japanese newspapers received the following letter. Quote, "To moms throughout Japan, in autumn, when appetites are strong, sweets are really delicious. When you think sweets, no matter what you say, it's Morinaga. We've added some special flavor. The flavor of potassium cyanide is a little bitter. It won't cause tooth decay, so buy the sweets for your kids. We've attached a notice on these bitter sweets that they contain poison. We've put 20 boxes in stores from Hakata to Tokyo." The same day, packages of cookies and candy were found in grocery stores throughout Japan, with typewritten labels attached reading, quote, "Danger, cyanide," end quote. In total, 18 packages were discovered and tested. One found at a supermarket only 35 yards away from the home Kahatsuisa Ezaki was kidnapped from.
No, exactly.
I know what we're gonna say. Okay,
I'll tee you up. I'll tee you up. If I already know the answer to
You
this,
know what?
Shane. I already know the answer to this.
We're gonna
Shane.
talk about our favorite candy, aren't we?
Oh no, wait a second. No, I thought we were gonna talk about something else.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I was gonna say, when Chipotle announced that they had an E. coli breakout, Shane and I thought this is the best time to go get Chipotle because there's going to be no lines. And we went there, and it was glorious. Extra guac.
They were filling up those chip bags to the fucking rim.
They knew they had to get rid of them. And who were they gonna give them to?
The Ghoul Boys.
What were you thinking?
So I'm thinking more candy-centric. A terrorist group says, "What up? We're poisoning nerds' ropes."
I'm going out there and
I'm going out there, I'm stocking up.
If I get poisoned, let's call that an occupational hazard.
If I get poisoned eating a nerd's rope and I'm dying on the ground, the last thing I'm doing is I'm taking the nerd's rope and just putting a little smile on my face.
If an assailant came from behind me and strangled me with a nerd's rope, I'd be sad, but I'd be a little less sad.
While not all the labeled packages were found to contain cyanide, at least one had enough to kill someone. Perhaps because of the warnings, no one ever consumed any of the tainted candy. The letter warning of the tainted sweets, however, said that next time there would be 30 boxes and they would not be labeled. For the next 2 weekends, it's reported about 40,000 officers staked out grocery stores across the country. The stakeouts yielded nothing, though thankfully it doesn't appear the group went through with their latest threat. Investigators did, however, find surveillance video from October 7th showing a suspect with permed hair, glasses, and a baseball hat placing something on a shelf where poisoned candy was later found. Unfortunately, the camera was bad, the lighting was poor, and the security tape hadn't been changed for over a year, meaning the quality of the image wasn't great. Images of this man, known as Bideo no Otoko, or Video Man, were released to the public, but he was never found.
It's a creative name.
Really went all out.
That would be our superhero names. Video Man, Content Boy.
Ghost Man.
Well, I don't know if they'd call you that.
Sometimes when I get so angry, my body just shuts off, and that's what happened there, and I rebooted. You're lucky I have that function.
Yeah, truth hurts.
In addition to this grainy videotape, some phone calls attempting to extort money and purportedly placed by the monster were released to the public. Disturbingly, the voices on the tapes were not those of hardened gangsters, but of a woman and a child. At one point, the child is heard giving instructions to leave money, quote, behind the seat of the bus stop bench, end quote. While the phone recordings never resulted in any arrests, it did provoke the public to reconsider just who the monster could be.
Can you imagine if you had a kid and he's like playing with his toys and you're like, come on, little Shady, it's time to go to bed. And then little Shady just looks up and goes, give me all your money.
Ooh,
Put it in a bag outside in the backyard, or you're a dead man.
anyone under the age of 23, creepy.
So
my
anyone under 23 is a child to you.
Freaks me out.
Following the suit of the public here, are you reconsidering who this monster is now?
In my brain, I'm picturing just a really pristine, hip ad agency.
Yeah.
With like a full staff.
Yeah.
Being like, what's progress on the latest police taunting letter? Did we get a child actor for the phone call? Great.
Imagine you're like a new writer in the room. You just got the gig and everyone's kind of jazz. It's jazz. Everything's clicking.
Yeah.
And they go, what about this? What if we put poison ivy in a ball pit?
Well, so yeah, we're thinking of something a little more far-reaching. That's not quite the sizzle we're looking for.
I was uncomfortable being number 22 anyway, so I'll see myself.
Get him out of here.
By March of 1985, a year after the first kidnapping, 31 food and candy companies had been harassed, and Japan's finest were still baffled by the case. Sometimes, a company being extorted would actually pull together the money demanded. The monster with 21 faces, however, always refused to pick the money up, correctly assuming police would be waiting for them. In one instance, 21 Faces instructed Glico representatives to wait for a phone call at a truck stop. Plainclothes policemen went instead, and no call ever came. The next letter from 21 Faces read, quote, "So you guys thought you could fool us, dressed up in your nice businessmen's blue suits, acting like salarymen? But we could tell immediately. Those shifty eyes gave you away." End quote.
Yeah. They said, get dunked on, dorks.
Damn, dude.
It must have taken a lot of time to drove to your local party city to pick those suits up, but we're a little too smart for that. I like a little trash talk too.
Big time. I don't know anything about it, but I know that out there on the court, that's when you use it.
What kind of trash talk do you do when you're doing competitive basket weaving?
Sort of like, I don't like your shoes. You have very dry skin. Sneak, and then I'm sneaking around.
At every turn, the monster with 21 faces seemed a step ahead. On the flip side, according to police, the group never received any of the money demanded. On August 12th, 1985, a year and a half after they first kidnapped a Candyman from his bathtub, the monster with 21 faces sent their last letter, announcing they would stop. By this time, according to Japan's National Police Agency, authorities had received over 28,000 tips and had used over 130,000 police officers. With a stack of letters, a laundry list of crimes, and a humiliated police agency, it's time to look at the theories surrounding who could have been the monster with 21 faces. Our first theory is that the monster with 21 faces was an inside job, and that Katsuhisa Izaki was in on it from the start. This theory was popular at the beginning of the crime wave, and seems to derive mainly from people's disbelief that Izaki was able to escape his kidnappers. There's never been any actual evidence to back this theory up, though some might find it suspicious that Morinaga's candy was poisoned, while Glico's was only threatened to be. Casting doubt on this theory is the fact that even with no cyanide being discovered in their products, Glico's business was greatly affected by the whole ordeal. At one point, after the monster with 21 faces publicly threatened to poison Glico candy, all of Glico products were pulled from shelves, forcing the company to shut down production temporarily and lay off 2/3 of their part-time employees.
I do think it's a little much to think that this guy was in on it just because he managed to escape. I think the monster with 21 faces aren't exactly violent criminals per se. So when they actually have a kidnapped person, they were like, oh, fuck, what do we actually do? They tied him up with like an extension cord or something.
Yeah. Glico being in on it doesn't make any sense to me, because why would they start with their own company? Start with the other company.
And then set their own production facility on fire? I guess to fuzz the radar a bit, but that's a lot of fuzz.
That's a lot of fuzz.
Too much fuzz. You ever have a peach that had too much fuzz on it?
No.
It's disgusting.
I've only had peaches that don't have enough fuzz.
Yeah.
I love the fuzz.
Oh, I don't like it. It massages my tongue in a not pleasurable way.
Love it.
Our second theory is that the monster with 21 faces was someone seeking revenge on Japan's food companies. Almost 30 years before 21 Faces sent their first letter in mid-1955, a stabilizing agent in Morinaga-produced dry milk accidentally contained the poison arsenic. By June 1956, over 12,000 infants had been injured, and 138 had died. Morinaga reached a settlement with the families of the affected infants, but a 1969 report showed that the survivors continued to suffer related ailments. By the time the Monster with 21 Faces began its campaign, the victims of the dry milk incident would have been almost 30, and perhaps ready to seek revenge on the company that made their early years so difficult. This theory, however, doesn't account for why 21 Faces targeted the entire industry instead of just Morinaga.
You fucked milk up somehow.
Yeah. You just take a bucket of milk and you leave it in the sun for a few days. But boy, I don't know how they get arsenic out of that.
I had gotten poisoned by a company as a child, and I was now a man. I would want revenge as well, too.
Sure.
I'm gonna write some funny letters, and I'm gonna make some funny calls and watch the stock drop. I like this one, I'm not gonna lie.
I like the idea that they're just out there blasting at any corporate target. Like you said, they seem like agents of chaos. So trying to figure out some motivation here almost feels less exciting to me.
Our final and best theory is that a man named Manabu Miyazaki was at the very least somehow involved. In November 1984, after the cyanide-poisoned confections showed the Monster with 21 Faces meant business, 100 million yen were set to be turned over to the criminals in Kyoto. Police surveilling the drop-off spotted a suspicious, quote, fox-eyed man, and gave chase. The suspect eluded capture, but police did manage to find the stolen car he had been driving, complete with a police scanner inside.
Fox-eyed man? What kind of kid's book shit is this?
I don't know, I mean, these police obviously aren't a crack squad of personnel here.
No.
Hilarious to me, by the way, in the one instance that they had to possibly catch this criminal, they lost in a foot race.
They really blew it. Yeah, that's rough. Humiliating. I almost wish they did it on purpose. Like, let's recruit someone real fast. Get them there so the cops see them, and then we'll have no problem outrunning them. Just to really make them feel bad.
Yeah, just they hire some parkour specialists.
Yeah.
And he's just bouncing off the walls or
Bring
running
like
circles.
Usain Bolt onto the team.
Yeah.
In January, authorities released a sketch of the fox-eyed man, leading to his identification as Manabu Miyazaki. The sketch was apparently so true to life that even Miyazaki's own mother believed it was him. That mother, by the way, happened to be from Osaka. The son of a Yakuza boss, Miyazaki was a known criminal who had organized anti-police actions in college and had already been arrested several times. While it appeared that police had finally made a face-saving break in the case, charges were never brought against Miyazaki. Miyazaki apparently had a rock-solid alibi, and no hard evidence was ever turned up to tie him back to the case. Miyazaki went on to write a memoir detailing his life of crime. The book was released shortly after the statute of limitations for the Man with 21 Faces case expired, and the cover was the sketch police released while trying to track Miyazaki down. Though he confessed to other crimes in the book, Miyazaki never mentioned any involvement in the 21 Faces spree. If Miyazaki was on his way to pick up the extorted 100 million yen when police gave chase, he did eventually get his money. The book went on to earn the known criminal over 100 million yen.
That's gotta be humiliating for the police. If this guy is in fact the Monster with 21 Faces,
And he's not even outright admitting it.
he out-thwarted you, or he outsmarted you
Yeah.
at every turn, and then he profited off of it.
I love it. I feel like there's very much probably a desire for a reputation. You'd want to boast that you did something, so you might as well wait till after the statute of limitations and, you know, hint that it was you.
But at that point, why not just say, yeah, it was me?
I don't know.
Just to not even give them the satisfaction, because when you do find out it was somebody, you do have closure, despite the fact that you got dunked on.
That's true.
Like, we cover a lot of cases, and I haven't solved any of them, obviously. I'm gonna have to bear that weight for the rest of my life. Most people, when they die, friendly moments with family and friends and lovers flash through their brain. For me,
All question marks.
I'm gonna be thinking, who the fuck was the Somerton man?
Your headstone's just gonna say, blew it.
It will remain ... and that's it.
A year after Katsuhisa Ezaki was first kidnapped, the The Japanese Ministry of Agriculture claimed sweets consumption across the country was down 10%. Both Izaki, Glico, and Morinaga suffered massive losses in sales. In Morinaga's case, perhaps even 60%. In the end, the monster with 21 faces got away with it. Even with the statute of limitations expired, no one has come forward to admit to the crime, unless the real face behind these crimes decides to someday reveal itself. The identities of the monster with 21 faces remains unsolved.
Did anyone get poisoned from this?
No one got poisoned, but companies' revenue got hurt, so I guess you could say people lost their jobs.
Then these men are my heroes. I salute them. I endorse what they have done. Let me go on record as being a super fan of the monster with 21 faces.
What is this, a fucking tryout? I know this is the last season, but to see you so candidly and kind of grossly audition for your next gig, I'm a little offended. Do it on your own time. And you know what?
BuzzFeed at large is not a fan of the monster with 21
And
faces.
I will
but
say,
I, Shane Madej, personally endorse them, and I hope they give me a call.
and I can say that I, Ryan Bergara, do not endorse them, but nice work. Nice work.
Don't poison people.
Don't poison people.